I had a woman come in to an audition. She came in, this little older woman came in, and she was shaking like a leaf. And I walked over and she said, I am so scared right now. She did a huge musical with us and she had the time of her life. And she was the star of our show. We just everybody loved her. And it just, she came up to me after the show and said, this was life-changing for me.
Yo, it's your boy, it's Bill Wham Bam Benamino, and it's another Wham Bam Wednesday. You know, the show about ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. Well, today, you guys asked this year you wanted more females. So we brought one to the house today in the studio. We have theater director, okay, for over 40 years. So if you're a theater person or an actor or even just any artist or a female that just wants to know what does it take, well, you're about to listen in right now. We have Pamela Rapoza in the house today. Hi, Pam. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks so much for coming in and being here today with us.
Great.
40 years in theater. Let's just get right into this. Mm-hmm. People out there, a lot of viewers and stuff, immediately when you think theater, we always think Broadway. We think the Broadway shows, the musical shows, and everything else. Is that exactly what it is that you do in not just professional theater, but also community theater?
Yeah, I mean, well, Broadway is kind of the mecca. It's what we all want to replicate, But any kind of live performance, I think, is indicative of theater, what we would call theater.
Yeah. How hard is it to actually direct and create a show? I mean, you've done some of the biggest shows, from Shrek to Grease to, all different types of shows. What was one of the hardest shows you ever had to direct?
Well, it depends. There's different elements to theater, which is what makes it either harder or easier. Shrek was very difficult, actually, because it was long. It's a long script. It has a lot of elements. There's a lot of makeup. There's a lot of special effects. There's a big set. It's a huge cast. So the bigger the cast, the bigger the show, the bigger the sets, all of that makes it more complicated. So, a lot of times we pick smaller things because it's not as complicated. It doesn't mean it's easier, but it just depends on the complication level, I guess.
Yeah, well, I know with your resume, you didn't do any easy shows. You did a lot of the harder ones because you like the challenge.
Yeah.
New York is obviously one of the biggest places to put on theater.
Yeah.
You being in New York and being a New York director, doing this for many, many years, it takes a lot, to put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of people behind the scenes that they don't see.
Yeah.
We show up, we purchase a ticket, we go watch it for a couple hours, and we give you the standing ovations and applause because we enjoyed it. But to think about the hours and the time that goes into the show, tell people a little bit about that and the heartaches that come with it.
Yeah, there's so much there that, we always say that we've done our job well if you can come in for a couple of hours and enjoy the show and not really know how much work that was, because it looks easy and you're happy when you leave. And so our goal is to make it look easy, But starting from beginning to end, we have auditions. Even before auditions, we spend months planning and preparing for auditions. Our design team often is preparing, designing, conceptually figuring out what we're going to do with this piece for 6 to 8 months, sometimes a year prior, leading up to auditions, and then auditions, which is always complicated. And then once we have auditions, we always do like a read-through evening where everyone sits at the table and we read the script together. And we kind of talk about the concept and the vision for the production. And, my job as a director is to make sure that everybody knows the vision so that we can all be implementing the same ideas. And what I love most about theater is it's a collaborative art form. So I might have a vision, but I will work with my team and my actors to develop that, and we iterate on it and we change it as we go, and we learn and we figure things out together. And that's the best part about it, is it really grows as a piece of art as you go through the rehearsal process. We usually rehearse like 6 to 8 sometimes 10 weeks, depending on the complication of the piece.
Having that many personalities in a room, okay, especially when it comes to theater, when it comes to art, and I know this with all artists, right? Whether it's music, whether it's an art, creating stuff, people that have that creative thought process, can go in a lot of different directions. You as being the director, has that ever affected you because you thought you were going to go one way and you had a vision, and then all of a sudden somebody changed it or they didn't like your vision and it created a little turmoil?
It can happen. I think one of the things that's good about theater folks is we know the process. And so when you sign up to do it, you're going to go and you're going to follow the director's vision, regardless of whether you agree or disagree. And it's hard as an actor, especially if you've directed and you're acting. It's really hard to step away from that. I know I've stopped performing because it's really hard for me not to direct.
Right.
And that's not my role as an actor. So
you were a great performer. I remember way back in the day. You did a lot of different musicals, both vocally, beautiful voice, but also dancing, tap dancing. You did some really cool numbers and stuff. Do you miss it? Do you prefer acting over directing? Or do you enjoy the directing piece of it all?
That's a good question. I love directing more. I don't miss performing. I really love creating something and making it come alive on the stage and then sitting in the back in the dark and just letting it shine on its own and not being up there. I don't need to be up there. I really, there's something satisfying about seeing your vision come to life in front of you.
Knowing about your Theater 444, this organization that you started and created, where you work with not just professionals and adults, but you've also worked with children as well.
Yeah.
And done some children plays such as Annie. And you've seen over the years, these kids that were kids are now adults. In fact, you have some friends and adults that you've worked with in the past, like a David Wood. It's actually on Broadway today, performing and stuff. What is that like to see, these people that you've worked with and you've trained and you coached and you taught make it to the big leagues?
Yeah, well, David and I were both young together performing in local community theater, and he grew up and went and he has performed in national tours and on Broadway, and he's not doing that anymore, but he was definitely successful. And I've had lots of friends have gone through that process. For me, really the difference between an amateur artist and a professional artist is really only money.
Yeah. But you know what? I've done some statistics on this, which is very mind-blowing, because when you go to a Broadway show, the average show costs anywhere between $125 average. Now you can get a ticket for as little as $69, $80 and as high as $400. So they're saying the average is about $125. And they're saying that the average actor that actually gets paid today is right around six figures, $100,000 to $125,000 overall. They get anywhere from $52,000 as high as maybe $350,000, $400,000. And that's for a long period of time. And when you think about the cost to live in New York City, you're going to spend $100,000 to live.
Yeah.
These studio apartments are ridiculous. So there's not a lot of money for these people.
No.
So they're really, really doing it. And I think that's why I actually enjoy theater and watching people, because they're really doing it for the love of what it is that they're doing.
Right.
And that's something that, unfortunately, money takes away from a lot of these kids today, even in sports. Obviously, I'm big into sports. I've watched these kids. I used to love college football because the kids would play for the game and for that next level to try to stand apart from everybody else. Now they're playing for that NIL money. They're playing for that opportunity to get that full scholarship and stuff. So, sometimes when they get the money, they get a little greedy, and it just changes the game itself. Do you think theater would ever gets that way as well? If you're paying people a certain money, like I know you guys struggle. You're always raising money and you're always trying to get sponsorships.
Yeah.
And really, your performances rely on your sponsors and stuff, and out of your own pocket, what you pay.
Yeah.
Do any of your actors ever give you a hard time to say, "Well, I'm the lead and I need to get paid and I should get X, Y, or Z"?
No, that's never happened to me.
God
Never.
Bless. God bless. Thank God.
It's interesting because I just gotta give some love out to community theater, because non-professional community theater is where it begins, no matter what you are. No matter what famous actor you are right now, you did something at community theater level to get you there. And so I think that that's a place where we grow and we learn the art form in community theater. And it's important that we keep focusing on keeping that going. It's really hard because, art historically has been underfunded, undersupported in general. And so that makes it really challenging. It's very expensive art form. You need all this equipment. You need lights. You need microphones. You need expensive things.
Well, just makeup artists alone. When you think about the show Shrek and what it takes, and you got to have somebody not only that can afford the makeup to put on the actors, but you got to actually have somebody that actually can do it.
Right.
And they're not just doing it once. You have different nights of shows. You have rehearsals.
Yep.
So it's over and over again.
Right.
So that's got to be hard.
Yeah, it's very hard, and it's a lot of time. And so at the community level, most people that are doing community theater have a full-time job all day long. A lot of them have families that they have to go home to, and they give their time freely to do this and to be able to perform. And that's why I think it's so important people go to the theater, like go see shows, because they say it's a dying art form, and that makes me so sad because, while I love to Netflix more than anybody, it's important that we keep live theater going,
Right. Well, I think live theater is so much better than film. And, we'll talk about that a little bit, because film is different. You have actors that are in film, but it's different than an actor in theater. What do you think is the difference between the two?
Well, the biggest difference is it's live. You don't get 5 takes. You don't get 8 tries. You got to get it right on the first try.
There's no editing. That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't. There's no leeway. You can't make a mistake when you're live, and you also need to know how to
talk about that though. There's got to be mistakes.
Of course.
What happens? Like, you must have some pretty good blooper reels. But the audience doesn't know it's a mistake most of the time, right?
If we do it right, the audience won't know. Yeah.
Have you ever had a situation where the actor made a mistake and just froze, or maybe something went wrong? Maybe they got hurt or something. That ever happened?
I don't think we've had anybody get hurt in my shows. I know, right? But there's been things that have happened live but one of the things we always talk about is we build that community of a cast together so we support each other. So nobody's alone up there.
Yeah.
And when something happens, somebody can help you recover from that. And that's where that community building is super important, because we have to take care of each other on stage. It's live. We're up there. We're being vulnerable. We're putting ourselves out in front of a whole bunch of people, not to look foolish. And so we have to help each other feel safe up there. And so that's the best part about recovery from mistakes. And it's also the most fun about live theater is you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So.
Well, there's got to be some challenges. Obviously, I think one of the biggest difference that I've noticed, obviously through film and theater, is music, right? They have to be able to sing. Everybody's singing, But what happens, you're practicing singing, and all of a sudden somebody gets laryngitis. Their voice goes wrong. Your lead role all of a sudden comes down with, like, what do you do? Is there any taping? Do you guys record them throughout just in case a live show they have to maybe do a little lip syncing or what?
No.
So how do you plan for that? What do you do?
No, you don't plan for it. Our actors know how to kind of protect their voices and take care of themselves. The 2 weeks leading up to the show, everyone's pounding vitamin C and trying to stay healthy. And it can be super challenging. And we have had shows where folks have been sick. I know a couple years ago, we were performing at the Rochester Fringe Festival, and my lead had COVID. And she did not tell us she had COVID. We did not know. And she did her last performance with COVID. And man, she walked off stage and just burst into tears at the end because she'd had given it her all to get through that one show. But
do you have backups?
Sometimes, but not always.
For your main leads.
No.
What happens if somebody just decides they don't want to show up? Is the show canceled?
That's never happened to
Thank
me.
God, knock
Good
on wood
Lord,
again.
don't give me.
No, but somebody have a, God forbid, somebody's heading into the show. They get a car accident or a
Yeah.
fender bender.
Nope.
Something happens. Like, I got to imagine life hits us all at the wrong times.
We do. I mean, I was doing one kind of
Would you step
variety
in?
show.
Would you fill in?
I
if it was a female
would
actor?
if I had to. Yeah. I mean, I was doing like a variety show, and we did have an actor that couldn't make it, got sick, wasn't able to show up, and we sat backstage the hour before the show and reblocked the whole show, refixed everything up so that we could eliminate him from the scenes that he was in. And so that has happened where we've had to like restage everything really quickly or leave, make some adjustments to fill in for somebody else. But luckily we've been blessed and not had like a major catastrophe. So,
let's talk a little bit about casting, because casting can be a little bit agonizing at times because maybe you're not finding the right person for that right role. Or do you go into plays knowing that, do you have people apply first knowing what the play is, or apply, say, hey, I want to be in this play in February or whenever it is, so that you kind of have an idea of the amount of people that you're going to have to pick from and then choose your play? Or do you choose a play and put it out there and whoever shows up to audition auditions?
So one of the things I've learned over the years is to trust the process. And if it's a production that I have a lot of heart involved with and I really care about, I let it play itself out, and I trust that whoever's supposed to show up is going to show. We don't precast things. I know some people think that that's a common practice, but it's really not. Obviously, I would be foolish to pick a show that I couldn't think of somebody I know that might show up. Like I would be foolish to do that, to do that. But so sometimes I have people in mind, but I don't always know that they're going to show up or not.
Yeah.
But it always seems to work out for the best. And we have so many talented people out there. Our communities are full of talented people, and they don't want to be professional actors. They just want to perform and do it because they love it, and they're so talented. I mean, at the local level, it's really possible to see really excellent quality theater. I just encourage people to go.
Well, the one thing that always amazes me, I mean, you mentioned it's live, which is huge. You don't think about that. You go see a movie, and like I said, they can edit, they can change it, like Wicked right now, right? Wicked's a big thing that's out there in the theaters today. But it was a big Broadway show and, a big play, and it was awesome. But now everybody's ranting and raving about the movie and how great the movie is and everything. But you don't think about it and realize that, they could do as many takes as they want to get it exactly perfect.
Right.
But on Broadway, it is what it is at that night.
You're going to get what you get.
Tuesday night's going to be a different show than probably Friday night.
Correct. And also you're dealing with an audience, right? And so the way an audience is reacting with you, that's a give and take energy that changes based on who's in the room. So it feels different every night. If you talk to actors, they would say, oh, that was kind of a dead crowd, or that crowd was so excited and fun, or you can feel it when the crowd is invested in it and is engaged in it. It changes the dynamic of the whole thing too. So
do you feel like do you feel like more plays need that one person to come out front as the announcer, or what do they label them as? The person that's actually, kind of like in a circus, the guy that comes out.
The narrator?
Like a narrator, somebody to come out and actually start interacting with the crowd and getting people excited, getting them ready. Because you're right, crowd is everything. And people do, they do, feel the energy from that. Yeah. And if the energy's low, it's not going to give them their best.
It's interesting because historically, musical theater has had a very large orchestra and a very large overture. And the overture was actually meant to do that, was meant to get the crowd excited about the performance. And so a lot of the old time orchestra overtures are quite long, 3-4 minutes long, meant to get everybody excited about the production. But having a narrator come out and kind of get everybody doesn't really put you in the world of the play. So I think it would.
I think of like circus shows and stuff.
And I think there's
they come out and make fun of people. They just kind of interact, just kind of get. Did you ever think about incorporating something like that in the live theater?
I think it's different. I think there's a difference between entertainment and musical theater.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. Entertainment, you can do that, and you can bring people in and do that and talk to the crowd. What we call the fourth wall in musical theater is the wall that is imaginary between the audience and the actors. So the actors don't see you. They just perform. We're looking at their world. And they don't acknowledge the audience because you're not there for them. They're just having their life, and you're watching their life. Right. So in order to create that illusion, that world for them, we can't break that fourth wall. Sometimes we do, depending on the play, and there would be something like that. So it just depends on the storyline. And yeah.
You know what? One of the things, Pam, that amazes me too in real live theater is there is no musical tracks that are being played. You have live orchestras. You have bands that are fit with, 30 to 50 people that are playing live, whether it's the trombone, whether it's the drums and stuff. Like, that's got to be hard to coordinate as well into the show, especially when you're relying on that music, on a daily basis for your shows.
Yeah. A lot of times when we do a large musical, we're rehearsing for like 8 weeks with just a piano. And then the last week of the show, the orchestra comes in and we start to perform with the orchestra. So it takes a few days to get the orchestra to meet up with the actors.
These people? and what does that cost? That's got to be expensive.
It is expensive. It's very expensive. In fact, the last large production that I just finished, we used tracks. We didn't use an orchestra because we didn't have space for a live orchestra, and we couldn't really afford a huge orchestra, which it required. So we just did Sweeney Todd last summer, and that was a big production as far as sound. And so we wanted that full orchestra sound, but we couldn't really afford that sound. So we did use tracks for that. And it ended up working out great. But using tracks is a whole other challenging thing because tracks are not flexible. You have to be exact. And you can't take an extra pause here or there. You have to keep up with the track. So there's pros and cons both ways.
Yeah. But what about building sets too? I mean, you got to have carpenters and everything else on staff.
Yeah.
Like, what is that like? Because who's building these things? Yeah.
Yeah. Over the years, we've had wonderful technicians and designers and builders and artists and costumers and wonderful people that have just volunteered their time to help support us.
Costume designers.
Yeah.
Or do you purchase costumes?
No. A lot of times we design. We build them ourselves. We sew them ourselves. And over the years, it's gotten harder and harder to find technicians. People don't want to spend their time doing that as much. So it's more and more difficult finding technicians, which we find super challenging. I have a great core team of my technical director. He's a wizard at sound and lights, and he kind of keeps us going. There's
so many moving parts. I didn't even think about it. You got sound, you got lights. Everything's got to be on cue.
Yep.
You got to have people that are moving the sets.
Yep.
Everything's
got to be kind of locked in. So it's a very community oriented experience. It can't be, if the orchestra is fighting with the singers, it doesn't sound good.
You ever get that drama?
Oh, and I mean fighting like they're playing too loud, they're overpowering.
Right.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, of course.
But and you got to step in as a director and be like, hey, yo, no, turn it down.
And so I always tell my actors, like, my job is to make them look good and make them sound good. And if we do that job, you don't notice all that stuff. You don't notice the lights and the sound and all of that. It's all it takes you away into the world. And that's our job as the crew, is to make sure that we're not visible at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, New York is so popular for theater and even community theater throughout the whole state. You won some really cool awards and been recognized through the Theater Association with New York about being one of the best director. What is that like when you sit back and think every city, every town, every small community out there, every high school, every elementary school is able to put on different plays and different, in different directions, with those plays. but they recognize Pamela Rapoza over all those others. What does that got to feel like?
Well, I mean, it's a pride point for sure. The Theater Association of New York covers all of New York State, and it's just, again, one of the things I love about the theater is you can take a story and make it your own, and it can look very different than somebody else's version of that story. And for someone to recognize my vision it's really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hi, I'm Phil Benamino, CEO and founder of Cost Plus Processing, the company that provides financial services to your business. We provide things such as POS systems, ATM machines, and check services. One of the biggest things that we strive ourselves here at Cost Plus Processing is our customer service. We are an A+ rated with the BBB with customer service, and we're proud to say we're here in the United States with all of our customer service agents. Our objective is to actually teach you and educate you about the costs that you're currently paying and show you ways where you can eliminate those costs that you no longer have to pay. One of the biggest programs that are out there today is our dual pricing program, where you actually can offer your customers now a choice of how they want to pay. Do they want to pay with cash or do they want to pay with card? And if they pay with card, it actually helps you to absorb the card fees, so you no longer have to pay the fees like you've done for many, many years. Cost Plus Processing aligns ourselves with some of the top POS companies out there in the industry today. For example, we have perfected the car dealership industry, and our dedicated team are equipped to manage a variety of online payment forms and financing options that merchants require in this advanced ecosystem of payments. If you have a restaurant, we are proud to be able to manage the ongoing difficulties that arise from this fast-paced industry, and you're looking for pay at the table, where customers can easily swipe their cards, tap their cards, and make their payments with tip, and also have a choice of how they want to pay, we have the solutions for you here at Cost Plus. We want to help other small business owners make their dreams come true by providing the best financial support. From barbershops to liquor stores, having the ability to take payments, schedule online, and make calculating tip sharing an easy task only helps business owners put more attention and money into what really matters the most. We can also provide you kiosks for your business, so customers can walk over to the kiosk and order anything that they want. Likewise, if you're having problem getting employees in the kitchen to work, we can also provide you robots that will actually deliver your food straight to the customer. I want to thank you for the time that you took to learn a little bit about Cost Plus Processing, and most importantly, why we are the future of merchant processing. Well, again, the proof's in the pudding, and, people are constantly seeing that. Do you find more actors now are wanting to perform for you and come work with you to see that?
We're starting to see that now with the new company, Theater 444. We're trying to envision a wider scope of an audience, and with that comes actors that want to perform with us. So we're getting more actors from the larger cities around where we are. So they're coming towards us, driving some an hour, some an hour and a half to be at rehearsal every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What about Georgia? Have you ever thought about doing a show in Georgia? I'm just going to throw it out there. The Fox Theater is available. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I would need a huge investor to pay all my people to come down here to do that.
Yeah.
We could
There's
definitely.
some great talent here in Georgia, too.
We could, well, sure. But I'd have to relocate for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But
is that something you think you would do in the future? Would you enjoy doing that, moving around different states, different cities, to just see the excitement and the energy that you could bring your talent to different places?
Perhaps. I mean, right now I have a full-time career that I've got to wrap up, and maybe once I retire from that, it would be something to try. But I do love and cherish my team, and so
I think it's selfish for not sharing it with the world.
Well, I mean,
a great talent.
It's not just me, though. I guess that's my point. It's not just me. The vision is multiple people. And so going into a space where I don't know anybody else to, not that you couldn't collaborate with other people, but I love my team very much right now. So that's one piece of it. But I could definitely find other people to collaborate with for sure.
Well, the one thing that I've actually appreciated since the COVID stuff, you guys have been able to stream your shows.
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of fun because, we're able to not, if we can't be in New York to watch it, you can actually stream it and watch it as well, which is kind of neat too. Do you feel with technology and stuff has made it a little bit easier for you to get things out there?
Yes and no. I think technology has really changed the face of theater. I mean, if you go to any Broadway production now, you're going to see technology, period. It's just part of the landscape now. And you can't really do theater without it anymore. Also, our audiences kind of demand it now. We live in a technology-rich world, so that's what we expect to see. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to keep up with the movie industry, we're going to keep up with all of that. We got to keep up with all of that. One of the things I want to say that I think a lot of people don't know is in order to do a production, you have to pay royalties to a royalty company who in turn pays the authors of the piece. So a lot of times,
ask you that. So you can't just pick a play.
You cannot.
Hey, you know what? Let's do Lion King.
Right.
And
right.
you just do Lion King, but you can turn around being sued.
Correct.
Because you didn't pay for the rights to be able to do that play.
Correct. And so there's some things that you can't do. Like people are like, why don't you do Wicked? Well, you can't. It's not available. They're not selling those royalties, so you can't do that. And so that's an interesting piece because I don't think people really understand the royalty piece of that.
What's it cost? Like, what's the average? Are they different, or are they pretty much all the same?
No, it depends on the production, the size of it, and the size of your audience house. So they go by seats, the number of seats.
Wait a second. So if I wanted to do Grease in Atlanta versus Grease in a little small community,
it'll cost you a lot more.
It's going to cost me more in a city, but it's the same play. It's the
Yep.
same rates.
But the number of seats in the house matter.
Why is that?
Because think about if you were a writer and you wrote Grease. The only way you're getting paid is if they calculate how many people are seeing it.
But what happens if nobody shows? God forbid. You know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
you're paying these rates.
Been there, done that.
They should pay per seat then, per ticket that's sold. Get a piece of each ticket sale. That I could understand. I could get behind that. Because it's like, hey, if I sell more ticket sales, you guys are going to get paid more because your show is obviously, hitting some people in a different
We have
level.
to take the risk, unfortunately. Like we put out the royalty prior to getting anything and getting any materials. And then that's just what it is. It's a standing price. And whether we get one person or 100 people, it's the same price. So that's why it's also like when it's difficult because we can lose money so easily if people don't show up.
Yeah, that's going to be hard. I mean, what do you do in a situation like that? I mean, has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know in New York, you can't really predict weather and stuff. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if there's a snowstorm,
I had a snowstorm once,
and people ain't coming out. They're not getting out of the house at that point in time.
Yep.
You still got to pay your fees to the theater and everything else.
Yep.
And unfortunately, there's no way to recover that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
I had a snowstorm once and we had one person in the audience. One.
Wow. Did you guys do the performance?
Of course we did.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That person came all that way out. Of course we're going to do it.
You didn't refund him his money and say, hey,
heck no.
Thanks, here's some popcorn. Head on home.
No. No.
Well, that's great. I bet you he had the time of or she, whoever it was, had the time of their life.
They did, actually.
Like, I bought out the whole place.
I was the only audience member.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, a couple questions that I have for you that are going to, throw you off a little bit, but I want to know one way or another. I'm going to just go ahead. It's a little part of the show that I like to do. And you tell me which one is better or harder for you. So if you had to choose what's more important, is it scenery or makeup?
Scenery.
Scenery more important? Why?
100%. I mean, we're trying to bring you into a world and a place.
That's fair.
It depends. Also depends on the show, I guess.
That makes
but
sense. Yeah, you got to have scenery. That makes sense. Okay, how about this? Is it easier to work with children or adults?
Oh, that's a hard one.
That's why I asked it.
It's a hard one.
40 years in the business, you should have an idea.
I mean, I love working with adults because, we are able to feed off each other and learn from each other and create together. But I also love working with kids because they are free. They have no fear.
Right. They have bad habits.
And they will do anything you tell them to do, and they will do it with all their full heart, So it's hard. That's a toss-up.
Is it? Okay. What is the hardest play you've ever done? The hardest one. That's pretty good that you can't rattle it off real quick.
Yeah, I can't.
Normally, if it was hard, it would stick out right away.
Yeah. Well, things are hard for different reasons, I would say Evita. That show we did at the Smith Opera House in Geneva, New York, and that's a huge proscenium opening. So this set was 3-story and huge set in Argentina. So it was a huge set. It's an opera, so that makes it really complicated, and there's no room for errors there as far as any of that goes. It was challenging choreography. There was a lot of tango and things we didn't really know about that we had to learn. And it was also just a very interesting, we took a different approach to it that wasn't the way it was written. So that made it very challenging also.
Yeah.
So that was really complicated. I think the amount of sets and everything really made it even more difficult.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's your favorite show that you've ever done? You've done a ton of them, and I'm sure that you love them all. But if you had to choose one to say, man, this one was a staple. This one put me on the map. This one, I don't think I could do any better on this one. What would it be?
It's like picking your favorite kid.
Yeah.
You
can do it. I can pick my favorite. I can pick my favorite. Don't make me do it because I'll do it.
Oh, it's hard. They're all like my children. Every single one. It's like birthing a child. And,
Of course.
It's just, they're all so much.
Got to choose one.
I guess it would be Spring Awakening, and the only reason I would pick that show is because it was the first show I did as Theater 444. It was my own. I put all my money in. I put all myself in. I just put all out on the table and went all in.
One basket.
And crossed my fingers.
Yeah.
And so it was. I guess that would be it. Just because it has a sentimental place in my heart.
Sure.
Because of what it did for me and how it changed things for me.
Yeah. What is the hardest musical out there today, would you say? That, it's like a lot of people stay away from it because they're like, I don't want to do this. It's just musically challenging, and may not have the right staff or the right people, or don't have the time to train them, to get them to the level they need to be. Is there any shows like that are just, most people try to stay away from and you kind of challenge them?
I think more than shows, I think it's writers. So like Stephen Sondheim, his music is really complicated. And so any of his shows are pretty challenging. And so you've got to have really good vocalists to do those productions. And so like when I just did Sweeney Todd, that was Sondheim. If you listen to the score to Sweeney Todd, it's challenging, and you've got to have singers to do it.
Yeah.
And we had them. So we did it.
Yeah. Talking about writing, have you ever thought about writing any plays? Now, I know you wrote a book. Pam, you did a little publishing. Let's talk about the book a little bit real quick.
Let's not talk about it.
Let's talk about the kids' book. Yes, let's put it out there. I want the viewers to know. I mean, you took time to actually write a cute book, and you've been pretty successful with it so far. Tell about your inspiration about doing that.
Well, by trade, I'm a teacher, which is also an actor. And so I taught first grade for many, many years. I know that audience very well of children. I was performing every day as a teacher in first grade. I used to wear my tap shoes to school when they were behaving well and as a reward. So I knew my audience well. I had stories in my brain. I knew what would make them laugh and what would speak to them. And then I also had stuff I wanted to say to kids. And I think that sometimes we tell all these stories that have big happy endings, and that's not really real life. Like, life is hard. And so I wanted somebody to tell kids that it's okay if you can't do something. It's, that you try something else, and then you try something else, and you just not give up on it. And so that kind of is how that story came out. I wrote Delores Bakes of Fortune Oh,
Dolores
gosh.
Bakes a Fortune.
Dolores Bakes a Fortune. She's trying to make cookies and she's just not good at it. She tells herself she's not good at it. And so, eventually her partner says, well, you keep telling yourself you can't bake. So of course you're not going to be able to do it. You got to believe in yourself. And so, there was that piece that I really wanted kids to hear, that they have to, it's a mindset, and we all know words matter and all of that, So I wrote that book out of just the love of kids. I've always loved kids, and I loved my job, and I wanted kids to have that message. And so I wrote that book. And
which is now on Amazon.
It is on Amazon.
You can purchase on Amazon. We'll flip up the photo of it right now.
But in some ways, it is a little script. It's a little script that could be performed.
You ever think about doing a film with it?
I never did, but yeah, that's something I could do eventually.
A little community child's play with it.
And I've always wanted to write a script, so that's something that I plan to do when I retire, when I have time to really focus on that, because I really think I could do it at this point.
We got about 2 more years.
Couple more years.
More years. So 2027. Boom. So 2028, we're going to look at you.
Give me a little time.
Writing the film and stuff.
Yeah.
Talk about a little bit about the steps in the process of starting Theater 444, and what it's like being a female number one out there, being an entrepreneur, business person yourself. After having you have a full-time job, as you said, you're in the teaching community. Obviously, you've grown into more than just a school teacher over the years, but it is difficult. I know a lot of people say, oh, there's a lot of grants out there for females. There's a lot of grants for minorities and different things. What has it been like for you in theater?
Yeah, it's been challenging. I did community theater for many, many years. I love community theater. It has my heart. But I got to a point where I wanted to try things that were challenging and a little bit controversial. And a lot of community theaters don't have the capacity for that. They need their audience to come. They can't do something that might turn anybody off. So I decided to step aside and try this because I wanted to do Spring Awakening, and it was a little bit controversial. And so I gave it a whirl. I put all my money that I had in. Actually, a friend gave me some money too and invested with me and loaned me some cash. And we produced the show on shoestring budget, very shoestring, no set, very few costumes. We just did it. And it was such a success. And it's been challenging because typically not-for-profits work with a board and they have specific laws and rules around not-for-profits. So I wasn't at that point when I started. I was just doing a show. And so then I was like, well, I've got to do something here. And so I just got a DBA quick just to have this business that was created in order to have it. And partnered up with an organization called Fractured Atlas, which is an artist company that covers my not-for-profit status. So they are my not-for-profit. So anyone that would want to donate to me, to Theater 444, would go through Fractured Atlas, and they would get their not-for-profit status donation. And then I would draw that money from them, and then I would pay tax on it anyway.
Right.
So it's
which means you're not even getting the full amount.
Correct. And grants often are only really given to not-for-profits. So a lot of grants I wasn't able to even apply for because I had a fiscal sponsor, which now that's changing a little bit. Now some grants are starting to accept a fiscal sponsor, but a lot of times at the beginning they weren't allowing that, For example, the Ontario County Arts Council was requiring me to have an office in Ontario County, but my office was technically national with them. So I was not considered local because my not-for-profit status was national. So it's complicated. And so grants are not easy to come by when you don't have a not-for-profit organization the way that we've set it up right now. We're looking to now step 2. What do we do next? Do we become a not-for-profit? we weren't sure it was even going to work. So we kind of are taking the steps that we can take, but we definitely rely on donations to keep us going because oftentimes when in especially small communities, theaters are just trying to make their money back so that they can do something else. Where it's not a money-making venture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not always.
What are some of the main sponsors that have helped you? You want to give them a quick shout out here?
I mean, our local folks are so good to us. They really do take care of us, and any amount helps. We've had a couple of big donors, the Lions National Bank and Pepsi-Cola of Geneva, WambamsPodcast.
Yeah. Right.
So we've and a couple of anonymous donors that have given us a little bit more.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's awesome. That's good. Well, it's got to be even harder with when you have large casting, large crews. What's the largest cast crew that you've ever had? You had to direct.
Well, it's funny you should ask that. When I was doing youth theater programming, our largest cast was 100 students.
Wow.
I had 100 kids in a show in Aladdin.
Aladdin.
Aladdin. And we had to set up tents behind the theater so that kids could go. There was not enough room backstage for 100 kids. So we would set tents up and porta potties in the back parking lot so they had a place to go in between scenes. So 100 was, that was a lot.
Yeah.
And then I've done a show with one actor recently. So
yeah. You ever do any dinner theaters type shows, the little shows in the round theater round and stuff?
Oh yeah.
How do you feel those go with dinner and stuff? Do you feel like sometimes is it better or is it worse? I mean, because I can only imagine if the food's bad and people are drinking, it could get a little rowdy or it could get a little fun, one or the other.
I think it depends on the show. Dinner theater can get very costly because you're paying for dinner and you're paying for the place as well as needing to pay for the ticket for the show. So it can get costly and sometimes it's not affordable to local folks. So we don't do it often. But it works great. I mean, I think if people want to be there, we did Forever Plaid multiple times because people kept wanting to come over and over again. So we kept doing it over and over again because they wanted to see it. So it can work. But it is a little, again, another element brought in, when we're trying to perform and there's a waiter walking past you to remind you you're not in that world, you're in this world. It can be distracting too. So it's challenge. It's just another challenge, challenging element to it.
What is the one thing that you'll always remember out of all the years you've directing the play that something happened? Got to be a funny story. Something happened that you'll never forget until the day you die.
Oh my gosh. There's so many things.
Give us one.
I mean, the last show we just did, Sweeney Todd, we were using an in the round small black box theater, and part of the show is this baker's oven that they're burning bodies in, essentially, right? And so Sweeney Todd, we had to create this oven in this space that really doesn't have an backstage area. So we had an exit door in this theater that we used. We created an oven outside the exit door. So we would open the exit door and all the smoke and the lights would come out and he would go into the oven and it was tented off in there. And there was some lighting and stuff in there that made the effect work. And so one night, opening night, I think it was, he went into the oven and they shut the door and he went to come around the theater and the door was locked. The front door was locked.
Uh-oh.
And he got locked out of the building.
Uh-oh.
So he was running around the building, knocking on all the doors, and he had to get in for the next scene. So he came running in, and nobody knew. Yeah. He came running into the first scene, and he was completely out of breath, and he was trying to say his first line, but he was so out of breath because he had been running around the building. But that's just one example of some of the crazy live things that can happen. Yeah.
Wow. You know what? And there's so many hours that go into it. Typically, when do you find your rehearsals going? Because I'm assuming everybody has regular jobs.
Yep.
Because they're not getting paid. Most of the actors are not getting paid. paid. They have regular jobs every day. Is that challenging trying to, set up a time where, hey, we're having rehearsal. I mean, what do you have rehearsal at 9 o'clock at night so everybody can be there? But then you got kids too that are in plays and they're going to be home in bed. Like, what is that like?
It's challenging. And like the more people in the cast that I'm working around all the schedules. I'm trying to create a calendar of schedule rehearsals that works for everybody. I've gotten good at it over the years. I've just done it so much now that I know how to kind of manipulate things so that...
How many people work with you? Like, do you have anybody working for you to help you with these things? Are you doing it all yourself?
I mean, I have my crew. I have my light and sound guy and my music director. And so those people help me as much as they can. But I do a lot of it myself. A lot of the marketing and advertising and all of that is me. Yeah.
But even just scheduling, like you got to, starting rehearsal and, maybe Joe's got a part or Samantha's got a part. They're not there yet because they're just getting off their job or their work.
Well, I've learned that if I can make the schedule for the whole time, we all can predict what's going to happen. And I try to work around people's schedules as much as possible. So, for example, this last show, we couldn't get anybody there before 6. So we couldn't start before 6. So rehearsal started at 6 and I knew so-and-so would show up by 6:30 and we would just get started and I would know that I couldn't use that person. So we would start doing something else before they got there. And it's just it's a dance. It's a very difficult dance. We try to get out of there by 10 at night. So, a lot of us are working all day and then we're at the theater from 6 to 10 at night. And it's a commitment.
Sure.
And so, and think about doing that for 6 to 8 weeks. It's challenging.
So, let me ask you real quick. Does talent trump time at times? Meaning if somebody's very talented, but they can't be there at the rehearsal, you give them a little bit of leeway? Or is it, no, you have to be at rehearsal because I can't get everything done. So you sacrifice some of the talent level for that. Is that something that plays in part or what?
It does play a part in it. They really have to be there. And it's it's like I tell people all the time, it's a team sport. You can't do it by yourself. No. And so you can be as talented as you want. You can come in and know every line and every song, but nobody else knows you. And they're the ones working around you and trying to figure out, how to interact with you on stage. And if you're never there, you can't create that bond and that commitment together. So it's really important that people be there. And it's more about other people than it is about you. It's about creating those connections on stage. So we have to be able to do that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the stereotypes that go into theater. Okay, because we know throughout the years there have been a lot of different stereotypes and people, there's so many kids and talented people out there that want to get into theater but are afraid of it. How does that affect, and what would you say to some of them today that are watching and wanted to get involved but afraid to?
Oh, yeah. I mean, fear is real. I mean, performing is hard and scary and vulnerable. You're putting yourself up in front of a live group of people and, it's scary. I always tell people that they should try. I think that, we try to create spaces that are safe for people so they don't feel taken advantage of or so vulnerable that they're that scared. I have gotten up at auditions and sang with people before at auditions came in. This is a great story. I had a woman come in to an audition. We had posted an audition for ages 8 to 80 or something, or 8 to 100. We were trying to get...
Great, so there's parts for everybody.
Right, we were trying to get the word out that there were lots of parts for lots of different age groups. And she came in, this little older woman came in, and she was shaking like a leaf, just shaking like a leaf. Oh. And I walked over and she said, "I am so scared right now, but this is on my bucket list."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I said, "Well, what are you going to sing?"
Please tell me you casted her.
She said, I said, "What are you going to sing?" She goes, "I don't know." I said, "Well, do you know Happy Birthday?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I'll sing it with you." And we sang Happy Birthday together. And then I said, "You're cast." Like that. And she was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" She was 88.
That's awesome.
And she did a huge musical with us, and she had the time of her life, and she was the star of our show. We just everybody loved her. And she came up to me after the show and said, this was life-changing for me. It was so important to me. So it can be done. Like, I guess you got to find the right people in your community that can support you, and just, you got to take a chance. I mean, that's true about anything in life, right? If you want to try something, you got to try it and not be afraid to fail at it. And if you're really, really scared to get on stage, there's so many other things you could do. There's so much tech. Lots of people start backstage. They love doing tech and they love doing stage crew, or, getting backstage, and then they get more courage and then they can get on stage too. So there's lots of ways to get involved. We need artists that know how to paint sets and scenery, and all of those things are so critical and important to us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know what, Pam, I just want to say, I applaud you for all the things that you've done, and, amazing, giving people, their life dream and giving them opportunities to showcase, anything that they have, whether it's a bucket list or whether it's true talent, but being a part of something that's special. And that's important. More and more people today need to be able to do that with others. Like you said, just somebody that might be an artist. What a great opportunity. If you're an artist out there, go find a local community play or charity, something that you could draw for. You might get your name out there. That might get you a start. Somebody might be like, who created this? And that could turn you into the next Picasso. Who knows?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But, take your dreams, take what you want, and utilize them, and you've certainly done that. I'm looking forward to your future and stuff. Really appreciate you being on the show today. And folks, as you always know, your boy Wham Bam always says, if your life was a movie, would it be worth watching? And if the answer is no, then stop being ordinary and start being extraordinary. Till next Wednesday, I'm your boy that always says, stay positive, baby, and keep testing negative. Till next Wednesday, I'm out.